What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a new release horror movie. And to be honest with you, this was a horror movie I was not very excited to see. And no, it's not because it's a Stephen King adaptation, because I've been reading a lot of Stephen King this year and I've been enjoying watching Stephen King adaptations. The reason I was not excited to watch this movie is because of the director of this film. The director of this film is a man named Rob Savage, who, if you have been following my YouTube for a while now, I am not a fan of Mr. Savage's work. He directed a found footage horror film called Host, which was shot during the pandemic. And I thought, despite some inventive visuals, the film was really lazy in its storytelling methods. I feel like the decisions of the characters made absolutely no sense as to why they would continue to film in the situations that they were in. It was just a really lazy movie that I wasn't sure why people praised so much. And then right after that, he released another found footage film called Dash Cam, which was not only my least favorite movie of the year, it is one of the worst movies I have ever seen. I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail about it because I did a full 12, 13 minute long video ranting about all the reasons that movie is horrible. So because I knew that he was directing this film, I was not very excited to see it, but because it's a Stephen King adaptation, and because it had some actors in it that I like, I figured I would watch it anyway. And the movie I'm going to be discussing today is The Boogeyman. The Boogeyman is directed by Rob Savage. Still reeling from the tragic death of their mother, a teenage girl and her younger sister find themselves plagued by a sadistic presence in their house and struggle to get their grieving father to pay attention before it's too late. So as I said, not a big fan of Rob Savage's work, wasn't really excited to see this movie. And I want to say, this is the best film that Rob Savage has made so far. But unfortunately, it's not saying much because it's still not a good movie. It has a ton of problems, which one of them is pacing. The pacing in this thing is absolutely abysmal. But I'll talk about all my problems when I get into it a little bit more. So, The Boogeyman tells us a story of a father, played by Chris Messina, and his two daughters. Recently, their mother has passed away. Chris Messina's character is a therapist. He works out of his house, and his two daughters are going through a lot because they lost their mother recently. And one day, this mysterious man comes into Chris Messina's office, played by David Dastmalchian. He talks to him for a bit and says that his kids were killed off by this monster, and starts going into this really big story about what happened to him. You can tell that Chris Messina's character doesn't really believe what he's telling him. He ends up leaving the room, going into another room of their house, and killing himself. After the police arrive and show up, the family's all shaken up because of what have happened. The two girls are incredibly traumatized by what they've experienced. And the movie is this creature starts haunting the two girls on a nightly basis, with things like being able to speak like other people, toy with them mentally. And the movie is them trying to figure out what this entity is and how to stop it. So this is based off of some of Stephen King's work. I have never read it before, so I went into this thing completely blind, and like I said, it's not very good. First off, the pacing in this thing is absolutely abysmal. It is the most run-of-the-mill, something goes bump in the night movie you can ever watch. Someone's in a room and immediately you're like, something's gonna pop out from here or here or here, or there's gonna be a fake out jump scare. There's nothing inventive or interesting added into this movie to keep you engaged or interested. It's so formulaic, and I believe this thing had a PG-13 rating, which it is incredibly tame. The entire movie is very, very tame, which is not to say you can't execute a PG-13 horror movie. You 100% can in the right hands. I think of something like Insidious. Insidious had a PG-13 rating and was executed absolutely perfectly. This movie just provides nothing new to the genre when it comes to these scares. The look of the creature is kind of lazy. I was not a huge fan of it. Very CGI. You can tell they weren't confident in the look of it because it's hidden through most of the movie. Even when it pops out at our characters, you can tell that they want to keep it a little bit in shadow because once it comes into full frame towards the third act of the movie, it's not really all that impressive to look at. I do think the performances in this movie are the strongest part, and the best part of the movie is the family dynamic. We've had a lot of horror movies over the past, 10 years that are all about familial trauma, dealing with loss and tragedy and mental illness. And those movies I love. I love movies that can use horror to examine something deeper deeper and darker and more interesting than just something pops out at you. But the problem is, when you're calling your film a horror movie, you have to make the horror elements interesting. And when I'm watching something that is just so formulaic and run-of-the-mill, it doesn't do anything for me. You have to do something that makes me remember your movie. And I'm already starting to forget elements of this, and I just watched it recently. And the problem is you get a scary scene and then you jump into some bland expositional dialogue that didn't really get you anywhere new. There's so many moments I found myself checking out in this movie that just weren't interesting. And that's what's unfortunate about this film, is it's a really interesting concept and it has the ability to be something really great, but because the execution of this film is handled so poorly, you just get a very formulaic movie. And it's not to say that like everyone is going to despise this. I'm sure some people will watch it and think, oh, it's a ghost or monster story that I can just sit down and turn my brain off and enjoy. But the problem is, I like movies like that too, but typically, even a shut your brain off and enjoy horror movie, there are elements in it that you can remember, and there's elements in it that'll surprise you. This has none of that. It's just like the same, something jumps out from under the bed, something comes out from under the closet. There was like one moment in this, one singular jump scare that I thought was impressively handled, and I really liked it a lot. But aside from that, everything else in this movie was so formulaic, and I was upset because I feel like the two actresses that play the daughters, Messina, they all three did a really fantastic job with this family dynamic, and I really liked some of the moments between the characters, and I was really hopeful that this would be something really great because it had the potential with those great performances. But everything else about the movie and the execution from the side of the director and the cinematographer and the people that bring the visual aspect to life, and even like the sound design in this movie, wasn't all that interesting. You think about a creature that can emulate other people and really kind of lure you in. You can do a lot of really interesting stuff with that, and they didn't. They just did it in the most flat, boring way possible. And I don't know, I would not recommend watching this movie. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's not like you're going to think it's like the most awful horror movie you've ever seen, but there isn't anything memorable about it, and there's almost something worse about something not being memorable than being absolutely abysmal. And I wouldn't see myself revisiting this film, and I would just skip it because there's a lot of better movies that have come out this year. So have you seen The Boogeyman? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was very run-of-the-mill and bland. I didn't really enjoy it all that much, and I wouldn't recommend you check it out. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.